I was also told that a CNG cylinder has to be recertified every 3 years. So Bajaj has also designed the subframe to be removable easily, or parts of the subframe to be dismantleable easily, so that you can extract the cylinder, send it for testing, recertify structure, and then put it back in the bike very, very quickly. But this is a thing that you have to be aware of if you're buying a CNG motorcycle. Unlike a petrol, which you keep going to the PUC guy, every 3 years, they'll actually physically take the cylinder out, retest it, and then put it back in the bike.
Because this is ballistic grade, so it can deal with those kind of pressures, so it has to be approved.
Yeah, and it meets all of the standard norms for cylinder testing. Of course, Bajaj did the dramatic thing by hiring a truck and running this, I think the bike or the cylinder over with the truck to see what damage and all that. It's very dramatic footage, I'll put it up. But basically, Bajaj is saying the cylinder is effectively bomb-proof. So one of the concerns they had to allay was the idea that, hey, you're basically straddling the cylinder and like a banana boat. You know how you sit on a banana boat, you're sitting on the cylinder, effectively doing the same thing, except that it's hidden from you by the seat and the body panels, right? But to me, honestly, this is not a problem. We straddle a petrol tank every day. We've been straddling them for 100 plus years now. And we are going to learn to straddle CNG tanks now. And then next we'll learn how to straddle batteries. So it's always the same thing. The energy is dense. It has to be contained. It has to be kept near the CG, the center of gravity. It's where it's going to go. It's going to go between your knees. I also asked Bajaj about the center of gravity. They said it's not a big difference from normal, because when you finish packaging the motorcycle, it is more or less in the same place. It's just that the net weight is a lot more. That's it. So even that is not different. So in terms of packaging, this is the full picture of the bike.
I've got to tell you, like, one of my first work I did when I started working in this line was at Car India and Bike India. It was a story about, well, a two-wheeler which ran on compressed gas. Now I can't remember whether it was CNG or LPG, but it's the same company that's making the kits for Bajaj, which is Vanaz. It's a Pune-based company, and I'm just pointing this out, that the idea has been around for that long. This was 2005. Back then it was a kit that was mounted on a rack at the back of a Kinetic, and it was being tested, and they even tested it for crash tests back then. Basically, they dropped it into a quarry, ass down, so that the tank which is sitting at the back takes the impact. So I went through a lot of the mechanisms back then. So it has everything like you would in a car, which is a pressure release valve, regulator, and you can see all those things on the bike, which is really cool. It's a full-fledged system, and the worry that people may have, and this question came up. Somebody asked me, is it safe? And I was like, that's the one thing I didn't even worry about at any point.
Yeah. And Bajaj has been saying this, and at this part I would give them credit for. They have been making CNG vehicles for a really long time, because they make the auto rickshaws. So it's not like Bajaj is learning how to make CNG for the first time. They've done this for a while in a different format. But the fundamental challenges of, for example, an explosion is the same thing. They have a slightly larger tank. This has a slightly smaller tank that has 3 liters of petrol. This has 2 liters of petrol. You have to manage those systems. The latitude in a three-wheeler may be a little bit more or less in terms of cost. On a two-wheeler, but the fundamentals remain in the same place. So Bajaj is not actually doing rocket science. They're playing to their own strengths.
And in this, let me just point out that any kind of failure, if you're imagining a failure for the tank and you're worried because it's under you, keep in mind you're going to need a puncture kind of failure, which is going to require an insane amount of precision for it to get through. In your typical scenarios, when you're thinking about accidents, it's going to be blunt force. So if you do have an impact, chances are the bike's going to be pushed. You're going to be pushed away from the motorcycle. So whatever happens, you'll be further away from it.
Correct.
So it's really not something that even came to mind when
I've been riding it. I've been riding a non-ABS motorcycle after a really long time.
Oh, right. This is non-ABS.
Yeah. And I've not been worried about this aspect of it. I was more worried about, I don't think these tires have as much grip as the last thing I rode or the next thing I'll ride, were my primary concerns. You've just watched a 3 to 5 minute clip on the MotorInc Clips channel, which means either you are an exceptionally talented millennial or Gen Z, or you're a much older person. In either case, would you like a challenge? Our main channel has videos that are at least 5 to 8 times longer, and they make 5 to 8 times more sense, I promise. Would you like to check it out? Come to the MotorInc channel.